Layla stood in front of the mirror, turning slowly. The dress shimmered gently under the warm lights of the boutique. Her hands trembled as she touched the delicate lace near her shoulders. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. She had always dreamed of this moment, seeing herself in white, eyes full of hope, heart full of love. The shop assistant clapped softly. "You look beautiful," she said kindly. Layla blushed and turned to the thick curtain behind her. "Could you call him in? I want to see his face." Outside the changing room, 3 voices laughed. One belonged to her fiancé Daniel. The other 2 were his best friends. "She really thinks she's pulling this off," one said. "Did you see the way that dress hugs her stomach?" The second voice added. "It's a charity wedding, man. Let her have her fantasy." Daniel laughed. "As long as she doesn't expect me to dance." Layla froze. Her smile vanished. The air in the room turned cold. Her fingers slowly let go of the dress. Her heart thudded hard in her chest. She stayed still, hoping she heard wrong, but then Daniel's voice spoke again. "Honestly, I should've said no when she cried at the proposal. Guilt is a hell of a trap." Layla stepped back. Her body went numb. She didn't want to cry, not here, not like this. She grabbed her coat from the corner, took off the veil, and walked out of the boutique. No one noticed. No one stopped her. The sound of their laughter followed her down the hallway like a ghost. Outside, the wind hit her face. She walked fast, heels clicking on the sidewalk, heart broken into sharp, quiet pieces. Cars passed. People laughed. Life moved on like nothing had happened. Layla didn't know where to go. She just knew she couldn't go home, not yet. By the time she reached her small apartment, the city lights were starting to flicker on. She stood in her living room, still holding the bridal shoes in one hand, her phone buzzing with messages in the other. Daniel had texted once. "Where did you go?" That was it. No apology, no explanation, just confusion, as if she had done something wrong. She didn't reply. The next day, Layla stayed quiet. She didn't tell her friends, didn't cancel the flowers or the cake. Deep down, she was still hoping for something, an apology, maybe, a reason, but it never came. 2 days later, the wedding day arrived. Layla sat alone in the dressing room at the hall. She had come anyway, maybe to hold on to something, maybe to see if Daniel would change his mind, maybe to feel like she mattered. But the clock kept ticking, and the door never opened. When it was 5 minutes past the ceremony time, a soft knock came. A young waiter stepped in awkwardly. There's no one out there," he said quietly. I think your groom isn't coming." Layla nodded. Her voice didn't come. Her fingers shook as she removed her earrings. A moment later, the same waiter returned, holding a clipboard. "I'm sorry to ask," he said, not meeting her eyes. "But the balance on the food, it's unpaid. Your name's on the contract." She reached into her purse, pulled out her card, and handed it over. Then she stood up, walked to the exit, and stepped outside. It had started raining. Of course it had. She sat on the steps of the empty wedding hall, water soaking her dress, makeup slowly running down her face. No cars, no music, no one. But someone was watching. A man sat in a parked car across the street. He had seen her walk in earlier, glowing and nervous. Now she looked like a painting left in the rain. He hesitated, then reached for the door handle, but stopped. She didn't need someone rushing in with empty sympathy. Not now. So he stayed. Where he was, Layla pulled her veil off and stared at the street. Her mind raced with every memory, every smile Daniel gave her, every promise he whispered. All fake, all poisoned off, she whispered to herself. Was I really that easy to leave? A woman passed by with her daughter, whispering something Layla couldn't hear. The little girl stared, eyes wide. Layla lowered her head. The stranger in the car finally stepped out. He took one step forward, then paused. No umbrella, just soft rain falling between them. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded napkin. He stepped closer, still silent, and gently placed it beside her on the steps, without saying a word. Then he walked away. Layla noticed it only after he left. The napkin was soaked, but the ink was still readable. You deserve better than a man who makes you cry in white. She stared at it, blinking slowly. Her fingers gripped it tight. Her breath caught in her throat. She looked up to find him, but he was already gone. Layla woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing nonstop. She rubbed her eyes. The pillow still damp from tears. She didn't remember crying. She checked the screen. Over 70 notifications, missed calls, messages, mentions on social media. Her heart sank. Something was wrong. Or worse, something had gone viral. She opened her Instagram and froze. There she was, sitting on the wedding hall steps. Soaked in rain, dress ruined, mascara running. Someone had taken a video. They had added a caption. Groom never showed, she paid the bill, and sat alone in the rain. It had over 500,000 views, and the comments, some were kind, but others were cruel. Why would you still show up? This is what desperation looks like. Someone marry her just for pity points. Layla's face turned red. She dropped the phone and covered her face with both hands. Her chest felt tight. Every breath hurt. She hadn't even cried like this when Daniel left. But now, strangers were laughing, judging, poking her wounds for views. She spent the rest of the morning in bed, not eating, not answering calls. Her best friend Nayla kept texting. Layla, please pick up. I'm coming over. Layla didn't reply. She didn't want to see anyone. She didn't want anyone's pity. That afternoon, she walked out for fresh air. She wore dark glasses, hoping no one would recognize her. But the whispers still followed. At the bakery, in the pharmacy, on the street corner, people stared, and she felt smaller with each step. She ducked into a small coffee shop to hide. It was quiet inside. Only 2 people sat near the window. The smell of cinnamon and coffee beans helped calm her nerves a little. She sat in a corner, hugging her coat tightly. The barista walked over. Your coffee's already paid for, she said. By the man who just left. Layla blinked. Whoop, man, the barista smiled. Tall, gray coat. Left a note for you too. She handed her a folded napkin. Layla opened it slowly. This time it said, "It's not weakness to show up." That took strength. She stared at the napkin for a long time. Who was this stranger? Why did he care? She thought back to the wedding night. That moment on the steps, the way he had placed the napkin and walked away, quiet, kind, not asking anything, just there. Later that evening, she sat at her small kitchen table and opened her laptop. She found the viral video again. Her hand shook as she hit the play button. But this time, she didn't stop it. She watched herself cry. She watched herself hold the wedding dress like it meant something. She watched herself sit, waiting for someone who never came. But then she thought about the napkin, about the coffee, and about the way she didn't hide in her apartment forever. Maybe she had more fight in her than she thought. The next day, she went to the cafe again. She sat at the same corner. She ordered the same drink and waited, but no one came. She returned the next day, and the day after that, still no sign of him, but she kept going. Not just to see him, but because, strangely, the cafe became a place where she could breathe. A small world where her pain wasn't trending. Just quiet. Then, one day, 5 days later, he walked in. She looked up and froze. He saw her, and stopped. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he smiled and walked over. Didn't think you'd come back, he said. His voice was calm, gentle, like he had known her forever. Layla swallowed. Didn't think you would either. He sat across from her. No pressure, no awkward small talk, just presence. After a long silence, he said, "You handled that day with more grace than I've seen in most people." Layla scoffed. "I was a mess," he shrugged. "Messy doesn't mean weak." She looked at him closely. His face was kind. Not handsome in a movie way, but honest. Grounded. "Why did you help me?" she asked. He leaned back in his chair. "Because I've seen what it's like to be left behind, and I know how it feels when no one sees you." That answer stayed with her. For hours after he left, she didn't even get his name. The next day, she came again. This time with 2 coffees. He came in just before noon. Sat down, took the cup she offered. "Ray," he said with a smile. "In case you were wondering." "Layla," she replied. "In case you didn't already know." He laughed. "The whole city knows you now." She rolled her eyes. "Don't remind me." They talked for 2 hours, about music, about books, about dreams. He never asked about the wedding. She never brought it up. It was the first time she laughed without forcing it. But just as they were about to leave, a man walked into the cafe and froze. Daniel. Her ex. He saw them sitting together. He narrowed his eyes and walked right back out. Ray didn't even look, but Layla felt her stomach twist. She stood slowly, unsure what to do. Ray looked at her. "You okay?" She nodded, but deep inside, something had changed. The past wasn't done with her, and something told her it was coming back. Layla couldn't sleep that night. The image of Daniel walking into the cafe and leaving immediately kept playing in her head. She didn't know what bothered her more, his silence, or the fact that she still cared even a little. She didn't want to. She wanted to forget him, bury the pain. But pain doesn't leave just because we want it to, especially when the wound is still fresh. The next morning, her phone buzzed again. A message. Unknown number. "We should talk. Please, one last time." She stared at the screen. Her thumb hovered over the delete button, but she didn't press it. She showed up at the cafe again later that day. Ray was already there, sipping coffee and sketching something on a napkin. He smiled when he saw her. "You look better," he said gently. "I slept," she lied. He tilted his head. "You didn't, did you?" She shook her head. "Daniel messaged me." Ray didn't flinch. He just nodded. "What did he say?" "That he wants to talk." "And do you want to?" She didn't answer right away. Finally, she said, "I want to hear what he says, but I don't think I want to believe any of it." Ray leaned forward, then go. "Not for him, for you. Close the door properly, or it'll keep opening when you least expect." Layla nodded slowly. "You're too wise to be a stranger." Ray smiled. "Maybe I'm not a stranger anymore." That afternoon, Layla met Daniel in a small restaurant away from the city. He looked different, cleaner, quieter, nervous. He stood when she walked in. "Layla," he said, eyes soft. She sat down. "Say what you need to." He sighed and folded his hands on the table. "I messed up. I was scared. People expected so much. I didn't know how to say no, and then the pressure got to me." "You mocked me," she said, voice steady. "You laughed with your friends behind a curtain while I was picking out a dress for you." He looked away. "I know, And I hate myself for it. Layla stared at him. Why did you come now? He was silent for a long time. Then he said, because I saw you at that cafe with that guy, and I realized I lost someone real. She leaned back. You didn't lose me. You threw me away. Daniel reached into his pocket and placed something on the table. It was the engagement ring. I kept it, he said, just in case. She looked at it for a second, then pushed it back toward him. There's no just in case anymore. He looked stunned. So that's it? She stood up. That, was it the moment you chose your ego over my dignity? She walked out of the restaurant without looking back. Outside, her hands shook, but her steps were firm. She finally felt the weight lifting. Not all of it, but enough to breathe again. The next day, another video went viral, but this one was different. It was taken from someone at the restaurant. A clip of Daniel sliding the ring across the table. Layla saying, you threw me away, and walking out with her head high. The caption read, she faced a man who abandoned her, and walked out stronger. People loved it, but Layla didn't care about comments this time. She cared about how she felt, and she felt proud. Later that evening, she sat with Ray on a bench near the lake. The sky was soft orange, the wind gentle. He handed her a small paper bag. What's this? She asked. Something I made for you. She opened it. Inside was a hand-drawn sketch of her, sitting at the cafe window, a soft smile on her face, a glow around her that felt almost magical. Layla stared at it. You drew this? He nodded. I wanted you to see what I saw. She didn't speak, just stared at the image, then quietly said, no one's ever made me feel seen like this. Ray didn't respond. He just gently took her hand. They sat like that, for a long time. Quiet, peaceful, healing. But peace doesn't last forever. The next morning, Layla woke up to a new headline. Daniel reveals truth behind viral bride drama. It was all a misunderstanding. Heart dropped. She clicked the video. Daniel sat in a studio, calm and composed, telling the world that he had wanted a private wedding, that Layla had pushed for attention, and that he had walked away because he feared she loved the spotlight more than him. Her stomach twisted. The comments were mixed now. Some believed him, some doubted her, some called it drama for fame. She called Ray. Her voice cracked. He flipped the story. Ray was silent on the line for a moment, then said, then it's time for your truth, she whispered. I don't want to fight. I'm tired. I know, he said gently. But sometimes fighting for truth is the last part of healing. Layla looked at herself in the mirror. She wasn't just tired. She was ready to end this on her own terms. Layla sat in front of her laptop, hands trembling above the keyboard. The video of Daniel's interview was still playing on mute in the corner of the screen. His calm face, his smooth lies. The way he made it sound like she was just another girl desperate for attention. It burned. She hadn't asked for any of this. Not the shame, not the spotlight, and definitely not the pity. But now, she had a choice. Stay silent and let his version become the truth, or speak, finally, and let the world hear her voice. She opened a blank video recording window. The screen showed her tired face. No makeup, no perfect lighting, just raw, real. She stared at herself for a while, then clicked record. My name is Layla, she began quietly, and I didn't want to make this video. But after seeing someone lie so easily on camera, I realized silence is no longer Paisate's permission. Her voice trembled at first, but she didn't stop. She talked about the wedding dress moment, about hearing Daniel and his friends laugh behind the curtain, about sitting alone at the wedding hall while everyone ghosted her, about paying the bill herself, about sitting in the rain and realizing no one was coming. Then she talked about the stranger. How he left a note instead of a question, how he gave her silence instead of shame. How he never asked for anything, not even her story. She paused near the end, looked down, then straight into the camera. I wasn't left because I wanted attention. I was left because someone didn't have the courage to stand beside a woman who doesn't shrink for his comfort. And if that makes me difficult, then I'd rather be alone than silent. She ended the recording. Didn't overthink, didn't edit, just uploaded it with the title, My Side, no drama, just truth. Within minutes, people started watching. By the end of the hour, her name was trending again, but this time, it was different. People shared her words. Silence is not Paisate's permission. She didn't cry for pity. She stood for truth. This is what healing looks like. She turned off her phone and stepped outside. The sun was warm, the air soft. For the first time in weeks, she walked without fear of who might be watching. Later that afternoon, Ray met her near the same cafe bench. He was holding a small cup of her favorite coffee. He handed it to her with a smile. You did it, Layla, smiled back. I was scared, and you still did it. That's what makes it powerful. They sat for a while, watching people pass by. Someone walked by and whispered, that's her. But this time, there was no mockery in the tone, only respect. You've changed a lot, Ray said gently. Layla looked at him. You think so? He nodded. At first you were trying to disappear. Now you've started to show up for yourself. She looked down at her hands. I think I was waiting for someone to rescue me. Then I realized, maybe I was the rescue. Ray leaned closer. Still, sometimes it helps to have someone walk with you. She looked at him. I'm glad it was you. That evening her video crossed 1 million views. Messages flooded her inbox, women, men, strangers, even celebrities, sharing her story and sending support. One woman wrote, "You gave me the courage to walk away from someone who made me feel small." But not everyone was happy. Daniel posted again, this time, angry. He accused her of chasing fame, of twisting the story. He threatened legal action. Layla saw the post but didn't respond. She didn't need to. The world was watching now, and more importantly, she was watching herself with pride. 2 days later, she got an unexpected call. It was from a woman named Claire. She introduced herself as the producer of a popular talk show. "Layla, we'd love to have you share your story, not for gossip, but because millions saw your strength and want to hear more." Layla hesitated, then said, "Only if it's live. No cuts, no editing. I want my words to be mine." Claire agreed. When Layla walked onto the stage a week later, the crowd stood. She wore a simple outfit. No sparkle, no drama, just her. The host asked gentle questions. Layla answered honestly. She didn't cry. She didn't smile too much either. She just spoke the truth, soft, steady, unshaken. Then came the question. "If Daniel is watching right now, what would you say?" Layla paused, looked straight into the camera. "I'd say thank you, not for the pain, but for making space in my life where something real could grow. You didn't break me, you revealed me." The audience went silent, then thundered with applause. After the show, Layla walked backstage and found Ray waiting for her. He handed her another napkin with a sketch, this one of her standing on the talk show stage, head high, light around her. She smiled and whispered, "You keep drawing me stronger than I feel." Ray smiled. "That's because I see who you're becoming before you do." Layla felt something stir in her chest. Something soft. Something new. She didn't say anything, but she didn't need to. The truth had finally been spoken, and now she was ready to live. The days after the interview felt different. Layla still received messages, still saw her name online, but now she wasn't afraid to open her phone. She replied to people who shared their own heartbreak stories. Some were dates, hurtful words. Some were big abandoned weddings, broken promises, years of silence. Each message reminded her that pain wasn't rare, but rising from it was still powerful. She realized she wasn't Elanand maybe. She had never been. One morning, while watering the small plant on her windowsill, she found a letter tucked under the pot, folded neatly, no name on it, just one sentence. Inside, "What would your dream day look like if no one could laugh, leave, or lie?" She smiled. She knew who wrote it. That evening she met Ray at the beach. It was cloudy but quiet, the sky soft with shades of blue and gray. She walked barefoot across the sand to where he sat sketching waves. He looked up, smiled, and asked, "Well?" She handed the letter back. "My dream day?" He nodded. She looked out at the ocean. It would be small. Just me, maybe a few. Real friends, barefoot like this, a white dress, simple, no stage, no lights, no pretending. Just truth, just love. Ray nodded, listening closely. "Would it be for you, or for someone else?" She paused. "For me, I think I forgot weddings are allowed to be about the bride too." He smiled. "They are, especially when the bride remembers who she is." They sat there, waves touching their toes, and for the first time, Layla imagined a wedding not built on pressure or performance but on peace. Not for approval, but for joy. A few days later, Ray surprised her. He had gathered a small group of kind strangers, people who had seen her video and reached out, offering help. One woman made dresses, one had a small bakery, another owned a flower stall. All of them were quiet fans of her story. All of them just wanted to give something back. Ray stood beside her as they explained their offers. A dress, a cake, simple beach flowers. No money needed, no expectations. Layla was overwhelmed. "Why are you all doing this?" The dressmaker smiled. "Because when you stood up for yourself, you reminded us to do the same." Layla looked at Ray. "Was this your idea?" He shrugged. "It was your dream, I just spoke it out loud." That night, Layla stood in front of the mirror, again this time wearing a simple off-white gown stitched by a woman who believed in second chances. The fabric was soft, the design was gentle. She turned slowly, memories flashing in her mind. But this time, no voices laughed behind a curtain, just her breathing, smiling, healing. The plan was simpler, small ceremony by the ocean, not a wedding to someone else, but a celebration of herself. Not to prove anything, just to honor everything she had survived. But something unexpected happened. Ray didn't show up that morning. She waited by the beach, dressed and ready. The sky was golden, the breeze perfect. Her friends were there, the kind strangers who helped. But Ray was missing. Her heart tightened. Was he pulling away now? Was the peace too good to be true? She sat alone on a rock, looking at the waves. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ray. "Meet me at the old dock. Just for a moment. Trust me." She stood, confused but curious. 10 minutes later, she reached the dock still wearing her dress, hair blowing in the sea wind. Ray stood there, holding something in his hands. A small box. She walked closer, heartbeat unsteady. He looked nervous. "I know today was about you, your strength, your healing, and I wanted that. I still do. But I realized something." She looked at him, waiting. I don't want to just be the guy who helped you heal. I want to be the one who never hurts you. He opened the box. Inside was a small seashell ring handcrafted. Simple, beautiful. I didn't come here to propose like a movie scene. I came here to ask if I could walk beside you, not as a stranger, not as a fixer, but as a friend who loves you. Layla's eyes filled. You were the only one who saw me when I was invisible, she whispered. Even I couldn't see myself. Ray stepped forward. So will you let me stay? She nodded, voice shaking. Yes, but not for the fairy tale, for the real one. He took her hand and they walked back to the beach together. When they arrived, the crowd cheered softly. Layla walked down a short path of shells and flowers, not toward an altar, but toward a small circle of people who chose her, who believed in her. She stood in the center, barefoot, glowing. Not because of makeup or lights, but because she was no longer hiding. Ray joined her, and together. They said no vows, just promises. He promised to listen when silence was easier. She promised to speak, even when her voice shook. He promised to stay, even when things got messy. She promised to grow, even when it scared her. The ceremony ended with laughter, soft music, and dancing in the sand. No judgments, no mocking, no leaving. No leaving. Just love, real, honest, quiet. And that night, as Layla sat by the fire watching Ray sketch their footprints in the sand, she whispered, "This is the wedding I dreamed of." Ray looked up. No guests in suits, no speeches. She smiled. Just the one person who never made me feel like too much. The stars above twinkled. And this time, she didn't wish for anything. She already had it. A week after the quiet wedding on the beach, Layla finally felt like she could breathe again. She and Ray spent their days walking through markets, painting on napkins, and laughing about things that had nothing to do with the past. It was calm, real, and peaceful. Every time Layla looked at him, she remembered how far she had come. But life has a strange way of testing the peace we build, especially when we least expect it. One evening, Layla returned home and found a small package at her door. No name, just her address written in blue ink. She picked it up, confused. Inside was a plain brown envelope. Her name was written on it in handwriting she hadn't seen in years. Her hands trembled. She opened it slowly. It was a letter from her father. Layla hadn't seen or spoken to him since she was 17. He had walked out of her life without a word, no calls, no birthdays, nothing. He had disappeared, and she had spent years trying not to care. But here it was, a letter that began with 3 words she never expected. I am sorry. She sat down, heart racing. The letter continued. I watched you on TV. I saw your strength, your pain, your truth. And I realized I had no right to stay silent anymore. I left because I didn't know how to be a good father. Your mother was gone, and I was broken. But that wasn't your fault. You deserved more. I couldn't face my failure, so I disappeared. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say, you became everything I wasn't strong enough to be. Layla finished the letter with tears falling down her face. It wasn't long. Just a page. Reopened something inside her, a room she had locked for years. She sat by the window for hours, watching the sky turn dark. She thought of all the school plays he missed, the birthdays he ignored, the nights she cried silently, pretending she was too strong to need a dad. She thought she had let it go. But now it was back. Ray noticed something was off the next day. They were sitting by the lake, sipping cold drinks. But Layla's smile wasn't real. He leaned closer. You got quiet again. She looked at him. My father sent me a letter. Ray didn't say anything at first. Then softly, do you want to talk about it? I don't know, she whispered. I hated him for so long. But now, he says sorry. And I feel like I'm 12 again, waiting at the window for him to come home. Ray reached for her hand. You don't have to forgive him today, or ever. But maybe it's okay to feel what you're feeling. She nodded slowly. I don't know if I'm angry or just tired. He smiled gently. Probably both. The next day, Layla did something she hadn't done in years. She walked to the old house she grew up in. It looked smaller than she remembered. The gate was rusted, the windows dusty. She stood there for a long time, remembering the sound of her mother's laughter, the smell of fresh bread. The nights she waited at the door, a neighbor saw her and came over. Layla, the woman asked gently. Layla smiled faintly. Hi, Mrs. Carter. The old woman touched her arm. Your father lived here for a few years after you left. I think he never stopped waiting for you. Layla blinked. He did. Mrs. Carter nodded. He used to sit on the porch and say, maybe today she'll come. He never said much. Just sat there with your baby picture in his hand. That night, Layla wrote a letter of her own. I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you, but I heard your words. I never needed you to be perfect. I just needed you to show up. I hope you're healing too. Maybe someday we'll talk, but for now, this is enough. She mailed it the next morning, and for the first time in years, she felt a strange kind of peace, not because things were fixed, but because she had said what needed to be said. Later that evening, she told Ray about it. He smiled. I'm proud of you. I didn't forgive him, she said. You don't have to, he replied. But you didn't carry it alone anymore. That matters. They walked along the beach again that night. The moon was bright, the waves soft. Layla looked at the sky. You think it's possible to move forward without forgetting everything behind? Ray nodded. I think moving forward means taking everything with you but letting it be lighter. She leaned her head on his shoulder. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Maybe her father would write again. Maybe not. Maybe healing would take years. Maybe it would come quietly, on days like this, when the sky was calm and her heart didn't hurt so much. For now, that was enough. She was no longer the girl sitting in the rain, waiting to be loved. She was a woman who faced storms and still stood tall. And this time, she was not alone. A month passed. Layla's world had changed completely. The internet had moved on, but she hadn't. She was still healing, still rebuilding, only now she was doing it from a place of peace. Her days were calm, her nights steady. Ray's quiet love gave her space to breathe and time to grow. They didn't talk about the past anymore. They didn't need to. It was there, but it no longer controlled her. She finally had something stronger than memories. She had freedom. One morning, her email pinged with a message that made her heart skip. It was from a publishing company. They had seen her viral video, read her interview transcripts, and watched the talk show. They wanted to offer her a book deal, memoir. Her story. In her own words. Layla sat frozen for several minutes. A book? She never imagined herself as a writer. She had barely kept journals. But now, someone wanted to put her pain and her rise on paper, to give it a cover, to place it on shelves. She called Ray immediately. He answered on the second ring. Everything okay? Ray, she whispered. A publisher wants me to write a book. He was silent for a second, then said, Of course they do. She laughed nervously. No, really, like a real book. With pages, my story. He smiled through the phone. You've been living the story. Now you just have to write it. But the idea scared her. Not because of the writing but because of what it would demand. She would have to revisit every detail, every moment of heartbreak, every bruise her heart still carried. Could she open those wounds again? She met with the publisher a few days later. They were warm, encouraging. They believed in her voice. People are still talking about you, the editor said. But what they need is your full truth, not a clip or a post, but the journey. From beginning to now. Layla nodded, but deep inside, fear lingered. Back home, Ray waited for her on the porch. He handed her a cup of tea before she even said a word. You look like your head's running faster than your feet. I'm scared, she admitted. What if I mess it up? What if I tell the story wrong? Ray looked at her gently. It's your story. There's no wrong way to tell it. But if you're going to do it honestly. Not for them. For you. That night, she sat by her window and opened a blank document. She stared at the screen for hours, then typed 4 words. It began with silence. Slowly, the words started to flow. She wrote about her father leaving, about growing up always waiting, about meeting Daniel, and how she confused attention with love, about the boutique, the laughter behind the curtain, the rain on her wedding day, and then about Ray. The man who didn't rescue her but walked beside her while she rescued herself. It was hard. Some nights she cried, some nights she wanted to stop, but she kept going, and each word made her feel lighter. Months passed, and then the book was done. She sent the final draft to the publisher, closed her laptop, and breathed deeply. The next day, the publisher called with one more surprise. A TV interview. National. Huge. Audience. Big names. They wanted her to share the book before it launched. Ray was happy for her, but something in his eyes changed when she told him. You okay? She asked. He nodded. Just wondering what happens now. What do you mean? He hesitated. Your world is getting bigger. Mine's still quiet. I don't want to get in the way of your light. Layla frowned. You are part of that light. He smiled but didn't answer. 2 nights before the interview, she found Ray sitting alone by the beach, sketching the waves. She sat beside him. You've been distant. He nodded. I guess I'm scared too. Of what? That one day you'll look around and realize you don't need me anymore. She turned to him, eyes filled. I needed you when no one else saw me. But it's not about needing anymore. It's about choosing, and I still choose you. Ray looked at her. Even if you become famous, even if I forget where I left my socks, even if I mess up live on TV, even if I sell 1 book or 1,000,000, I choose you. His eyes softened, and she added, but only if you choose to keep walking beside me, not behind, not ahead, with me. He reached out and took her hand, and in that moment, they both understood something important. Her journey wasn't just about healing from the past. It was about learning to carry love, without fear. The night of the interview arrived. The stage was bright, the cameras were everywhere. Layla walked out wearing a simple outfit, nothing dramatic, just her. The host smiled. Layla, your story has touched millions. Your book is called She Walked Anyway. What do you want readers to feel when they close that final page? Layla paused, then said softly, I want them to feel seen. To know that even if love leaves, even if voices mock, even if no one shows up on the day that matters most, you still have a voice. You still have worth. And you still have the power to walk anyway. The crowd stood and clapped. But in the back of the room, one person stood quietly. Ray. No spotlight. Just love. And Layla smiled because she knew her story was only just beginning. The book launch was bigger than Layla ever imagined. The event hall was full of readers, journalists, and quiet supporters who had followed her journey since the first video went viral. Cameras flashed. Her book sat in neat stacks across the room. Each cover held the same title in soft gold letters. She walked anyway. She wore a simple dress again, the same one from the beach ceremony. A quiet symbol of how far she had come. Ray stood beside her, not in the spotlight, not giving speeches, just silently proud. He watched her sign books, hug strangers, and smile without forcing it. He knew she wasn't playing strong anymore. She had become strong. Later that evening, the crowd thinned. The lights dimmed. Layla walked outside to get some air. The night was cool. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you," though she wasn't sure who she was saying it to, God, the stars herself, or maybe all of them. Ray came out a few minutes later and handed her a note. She raised an eyebrow. Another sketch. He shook his head. No sketch this time, just a question. She opened the folded paper. Inside were 5 words. "May I marry you now?" Layla blinked, looked up at him. "What?" Ray smiled. "Not a big wedding, not a viral moment. Just you, just me. A vow to keep walking forward." She stared at him for a long moment, her heart suddenly full, then whispered, "Yes." They didn't wait for months. They didn't send invitations. They didn't even choose a fancy venue. A week later, they stood at the same beach where she once felt forgotten, now filled with meaning. The sun was soft, the waves gentle. Only a few close friends were there. Nayla stood beside Layla, holding her hand just like she did on the worst day of her life, and now, on the best. Layla didn't wear a veil. Ray didn't wear a suit. They wore honesty, healing, and the kind of love that doesn't need permission. The officiant said a few simple words, then nodded for them to speak. Ray went first. "I met you on a day you were drowning in silence," he said, "and I didn't save you. You saved yourself. But I walked beside you, and you let me stay. I promise now to never walk ahead, never behind, always beside." Layla's eyes filled. She took a deep breath and said, "You gave me nothing I could touch, but everything I needed. Space, safety, stillness. I promise to never forget how you saw me when I was invisible. And I'll see you just as clearly away." They exchanged rings made from small stones, wrapped in silver, a gift from the same artist who made her first beach ring. No choir, no pedals, just waves clapping quietly in the distance. When it ended, there was no party, just dancing in the sand, with bare feet and full hearts. That night, they lit a small fire by the water. Layla pulled out a box and handed it to Ray. He opened it. Inside were 2 things, a printed copy of the first napkin he gave her, and a brand new napkin with a drawing she had made herself. It showed both of them, sitting side by side, under a sky filled with stars. Ray looked at her, stunned. "You drew this?" She nodded. "You kept drawing me stronger than I felt. So I finally saw myself that way too. And now, I see you the same." He hugged her, tighter than he ever had before. For a long time, they sat by the fire, just holding each other. Layla whispered, "I thought the story ended when I was left at the altar." But that wasn't the ending. Ray smiled. It wasn't even the middle. A few days later, Layla received a letter from her father again. "I saw the interview. I saw the wedding. I cried, Layla. Not from guilt this time, but from pride. I don't know if I deserve to stand in your life, but if one day you feel ready, I'd like to meet the man who stood by you when I didn't." Layla read the letter twice, then folded it and placed it in her drawer. She didn't reply. Not yet. But something inside her didn't hurt as much. This time, she would decide when she was ready. Weeks turned into months. Her book remained on shelves, but more importantly, her peace remained inside her. One morning, she walked into the cafe where everything began. She sat by the window, alone, this time, sipping coffee slowly. The barista smiled. Same corner, same smile. Layla nodded, different heart. Just then, a little girl walked up shyly, maybe 9 or 10, holding a copy of her book. "Are you Layla?" she asked. Layla smiled gently. "Yes." The girl handed her the book. "My mom said, you're brave." Layla signed the book with careful hands, then asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" The girl thought for a second. Not afraid. Layla held back tears. "Then you're already halfway there." As the girl walked away, Layla looked outside the window. The world was still noisy, still fast. But inside, she had silence, the good kind, the kind that feels like home, and she knew, without question, she had finally written the ending they never expected, one where she was never left behind again.